Peachtree TV presents Monica Pearson, One-on-One.
He's known on the street and on the stage as Bone Crusher. He looks like a sumo wrestler, but actually is a Grammy-nominated artist. He hit it big on the rap charts with his #1 single, Never Scared. It's time to go one-on-one with Atlanta native Wayne Hardnett Jr., better known as Bone Crusher. We met at his favorite restaurant, Grits and Eggs Breakfast Kitchen in Vinings. All right, now this, you gotta help me, because I'm of another generation.
Oh.
Define crunk for me.
Crunk is energy, pure energy. Fun, elation. It is a birthright of Memphis and Georgia, right? Memphis from 3-6 Mafia, Project Pat, to Ball and G, all the way to Atlanta with myself, Lil Jon, and all the other cast of players that are involved with it, right? You got Yin Yang Twins in there, and that's really the whole overall view of what crunk is. It's energy spread through family. That's what crunk is. Crunk feels like family. That's why it's timeless, why people still like it. Because when we invented it, when I invented my song, it came from love, from respect. Even though it got a lot of anger in it, if you listen to it, it's real singing. So that singing is a respect to music and musicology. The reason why John, myself, and Yin Yang and some of the other players involved, Scrappy and all them, are still relevant today is because when we did it for the inspiration of love and music. It may not have been, it's no different than when Cab Calloway came out. They thought he was risque. Think about that. Think about Billie Holiday when she came out. They thought she was really risque, right? Now we see her as one of the greatest of all time, right? But every time span has that. Think about Ray Charles singing those records from the church. You know what I'm saying to you? And people were like, man, you blasphemous. They throwing stuff at him. But now Ray Charles is looked at as a martyr of the business. For the way he handled business, the way he approached his music. And that is really what crunk is. Crunk is that same thing. Because we respect music so much, the avenue in which it came through us, that's how we brought it back. We brought it back to the world in that same way.
There's this guttural sound.
It is.
In the lyrics.
Pain and passion. That's what it is.
With a deep Southern bass.
It is, all Southern. It's all Atlanta. It's real Atlanta.
And he is Atlanta. Grew up in Adamsville, started at Harper High School, then graduated from Banneker High in 1989. He went to college even though he didn't want to go.
Now, how did your parents feel about you wanting to go into entertainment?
It was split. My grandfather didn't care what I did as long as I was committed, right? And all the education, once he told me what all the education was being forced on me about, was that I was to figure out what I wanted to do and what I didn't want to do. So when I was in college, my grandpa said, you're going to school to figure out what you don't want to do in life. So if you know when you're in school, you know, you got to get up, go to class, you got to get up and do this. And hopefully inside of all that, you can find a major or something that will make you become a great person in life. So going to school helped me understand that I didn't want to go to school, but I had to figure out what it was I wanted to do because we had only 2 rules in my house. Either you go to school or you go to work. And I didn't want to go to work. So I went to another school, which I went to Atlanta Area Tech, and I was already a carpenter because of Job Corps. I went to Job Corps after high school. But then I went back to Atlanta Area Tech to further my education as a carpenter. So I became a carpenter. Then I went to journeyman school right here off of Boulevard, and I became a journeyman carpenter.
So you are pretty handy around the house when it comes to building.
Yeah, kinda, yeah. I'll tell you, hey, Miss Kaufman, I cannot call you Monica. I don't care what you tell me. Hey, Miss Kaufman, when I figured out that music was my everything, I took my hammer. I was working on North Spring High School, right here off of Ashford Dunwoody, Roswell Road here. And I threw my hammer all the way off the building. I said, man, I ain't doing this no more. At the time, this is like 1991, 92. I was making $1,000 a week almost, like $800 to $1,000 a week. And back then, that was a lot of money. For me to come home and stay with my grandparents, telling them that I'm quitting this job to do music, understand that there's no music business back then, so there's no blueprint for them to say, well, maybe. It's like, oh no, you done lost your mind, boy. That music ain't gonna do that. Then you're not even singing. You're doing this hip hop, bebop, loop, bop, bop, boy, you done lost your mind. You gonna quit a job? We don't put all this money into you, all this education, you gonna quit a job? Miss Kaufman, you know how it is. It ain't gonna happen. It ain't gonna happen. So I had to go through that for years, proving that I really wanted to do it. And when my grandfather really knew that I wanted to do it and he really appreciated me doing what I was doing and loved it, was when I had just came home from the studio early that morning, like 4 or 5 o'clock. And then I went and I got right back up at like 8. So that's like 3 hours of sleep, right? I take a shower, get ready. So I'm trying to get out the house when my grandpa get home. What time you get in last night? I said about, I don't know, 4 o'clock? 4 o'clock? You got in at 4 o'clock. You got up, that means you got up at 7 at least, take a shower. It's 8 o'clock. Your grandma wake you up? I said, no, her grandma woke me up, not put on hip hop, bebop in my head. I'm like, no way. My grandma ain't even talking to me, she mad at me, right? So he's like, oh, wait a minute now. Your grandma didn't wake you up. Did the alarm go off? I said, no, I just woke up. The sun woke me up. The sun woke you up. I said, yeah. He said, I tell you what, I think you figured it out. I said, what? He said, I think you figured it out. I think that's what you need to be doing. I said, oh, uh-oh. I said, for real? He said, man, if you are willing to go through the things that we put you through to get you here, and you still at it, man, it brings tears to my eyes.
Oh.
Real talk.
So did he see your first hit? No.
Never saw it. Never saw it. Never. And when I got my first check, I was in the shower and I cried for like 30 minutes because I wanted him to see it.
Oh.
That's real.
That is real. Now, what lessons did you learn from how your grandfather handled you, managed you, do you apply to your 5 children?
Ethics, code, structure. So my grandfather lived by. It's the same things that I live by, the same things I instill to my children. Now, whether or not they're applying it is one thing, but I've instilled character, ethics, and code into my children. And the structure I tried to build in them, as we know, children don't really listen to their parents. They think their parents are old. Don't matter who I am. You know, I'm bone crusher to everybody else, but to them, I'm just their daddy. And they can care less about what I'm talking about. I'm an old man, it don't mean nothing, you know what I mean? But those are the things I try to instill into my children. I think I did a good job. They're finding their way now, just like I did. And hopefully, with everything I try to instill in them, they will get to a point in their life where they can be successful at whatever they want to do. So those are the things I definitely try to do. And a lot of love. I can only learn to be great by listening to greatness.
But you won't find hip hop or crunk on his playlist. Coming up, Bone Crusher's surprising choice of music that he draws inspiration from. But first, why he says his famous long curls had to go. And he tells me what it was like taking on the role of a video game character.
Never Scared was on the Attention album that went platinum and was the #1 album on the Billboard charts. Never Scared was the theme song for the Braves and was featured in 2 video games, one in which Bone Crusher appeared.
How did that happen? Are you a video game player?
I am not, but I love watching people play it though. I can watch people play video games all day. I don't have the manual dexterity to be able to go from my mind to my hands to be able to, you know what I mean? But I can watch people play it all day. If they're really good, it's like watching a movie. And those video games, especially the ones that are saga games, that they are really written very well. You can watch them like a movie.
Yeah.
So I watch people play video games all day. There's this guy I watch on Instagram named Hollow. I watch him all day play video games. I sit watching for hours.
So when they selected you as a character,
Yeah.
Did you have to go in and pose and do all of that?
I did. All those moves in the video game, the Def Jam game.
Yeah.
I did all those moves. Yeah. All the characters. They took like a 4D image of me, and I had a script. I wrote my own script basically. We did it in New York. It was crazy.
How did you come up with the name Bone Crusher? I thought you were a wrestler at first.
Nah, I used to do that too. I used to break backs when I was a kid. Oh, I'm not proud of that though. When I was a child, I did a lot of childish things. And if you're a Christian, the Bible says that when you're a child, you do childish things. If you get older, you get rid of those things and become an adult. I'm paraphrasing, right? So, but that's what I did. When I was a kid, I did a lot of things I'm not very proud of. I went from Lil Wayne, my dad is Big Wayne, from Lil Wayne to Big Wayne on the street, on the block at Adamsville, to Bone Crusher. You know, I'll let the world draw their conclusions on how I became Bone Crusher. But I didn't name myself.
Oh.
Right. I didn't name myself. My name was given to me.
Do I really want to go down that road?
No. And I won't go down the road with you, Miss Kaufman.
Okay.
It will never happen.
He is on the road to good health. He was the biggest loser on the Celebrity Fit Club, but regained the weight. Now he's dropped from 485 pounds to 300 pounds, thanks to a team that includes an herbalist, chiropractor, and trainer. So your health has become really important to you.
Yes, it has. It always has. I just never had the blueprint. You know, I said it earlier about music and how we had a blueprint, you guys. Once I figured out the blueprint from those guys and my willingness to be able to understand that blueprint, that's when my life started to change. My skin got better, I looked younger, I started investing in my overall wellness mentally, stayed away from certain kind of energies, stayed away from narcissists, stayed away from people with bad spirits, and I ended up becoming what I am today.
Okay, you know what I miss about you?
What's that?
Your hair.
I cut it.
Why'd you cut off all that gorgeous hair?
I had to.
Why?
My transition back to where I'm coming, there's a new image of what I'm trying to bring. So every aspect of who that guy was is still there. The hair was just a part of that this new image that I'm bringing wouldn't work. So every album is different. The Tension album was me being monstrous, right? And I have to stay in that world as long as I'm doing that type of grooves and those type of sounds. This new sound is a more jazzy, hip hop, bluesy, energy, power movement, a new album from things I've learned working with live instrumentation all my life.
So who do you listen to? Who are the musicians you listen to?
Right now?
Uh-huh.
I've always been listening to the same people all the time. Barry White, Marvin Gaye, Alexander O'Neal.
These are all love songs.
Yeah, they are. Love.
That's so different from crunk.
Yeah, it is. That's where it comes from. I have to be in a space of total clarity in order to be able to deliver what I'm feeling. But that's the only way I can do it. I can't be up all day. I'll burn out. I'm like a light bulb with a setting. I listen to jazz and slow music all day. All day. I rarely listen to hip hop. Rarely. I'm listening to forever trending music at all times. Always. That's the only way I get inspired to do what I do. I can only learn to be great by listening to greatness.
I can't wait to hear the music from the reincarnated Bone Crusher later this year. Coming up next, another College Park native is making hits and a name for himself in the music business. I'll introduce you to Mr. Collipark when One-on-One returns. He's known for producing Atlanta booty shake music and Southern hip hop with the Yin Yang Twins, Bubba Sparks, Soulja Boy, and many more. I learned why Michael Crooms is headed in a new direction when I went one-on-one with a producer who goes by many names. The most famous, Mr. Collipark, named for College Park.
Soulja Boy's Crank That was nominated for a Grammy, and the producer, Michael Crooms, had a cameo in the video. One of his many names was featured too, but it wasn't his first nickname. The first was DJ Smurf.
I DJ'd at a house of older DJs. When the Smurfs were coming out, a guy in the back of the neighborhood, he had the turntables. So the Smurfs was out and popular, and they cracked a joke on me. Said, you look like a little Smurf. A DJ Smurf. Because, you know, you had Grumpy Smurf, Grouchy Smurf, Papa Smurf, all the Smurfs. So when they said DJ Smurf, everybody laughed, of course. I said, that's a good name. So I kept it.
Does your mama like that name?
She calls me Mike. Yeah, Mama don't call me none of the other names. I got about 4 or 5 of them, but she calls me Mike.
Well, I know DJ Smurf. What are the others?
You got Mr. Collipark, DJ Smurf, and this a little known fact name. When I started working with the Yin Yang Twins, I didn't want to use DJ Smurf, so I made this little name up, not thinking the Yin Yang was gonna do what they did. So I called myself Beating Ass. Can I say that?
What does it mean?
Oh my goodness. This is clean TV. The beats were so hard. It was like when your daddy used to.
Oh, beat your ass.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. Now I gotcha.
Yeah.
So when you aren't being Mr. Collipark, which, by the way, how did you get that nickname?
So, true story. When we were doing the flyers, back when we had flyers, when we used to pass out flyers, I said, I'm gonna put Mr. Collipark on here just to see what happens. It wasn't official, it was nothing. And I put it on there, and at that time, I had an interview with one of these magazines, either Source or somebody. They did a little special on me. And after we wrapped the Whisper video, X, the director, shouts out to X, he gives out cigars. And so I had a cigar in my car from when I got back from the airport, and some told me to just put some suits in the car for the photo shoot. I said, I'm not gonna do it. But at the last minute, I put the suit on, got the cigar that X gave me from the video, lit it, and took a picture. And when I saw the picture, I said, that's Collipark right there. And that's how I was born. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Collipark, when first time I heard that.
And I'm the first to spell it.
Where did this music thing come from?
Well, my dad was in the band. My oldest brother was in the band. But 2 of my older brothers were in the band. And so I looked up to my oldest brother, Kevin. I wanted to do everything he wanted to do. He knew how to do the Michael Jackson. I wanted to do the Michael Jackson. And so he played the trumpet. I wanted to play the trumpet. So I was actually in the marching band. And he would buy records. And so he had a little turntable set up in his room. So when he started buying all those 12 inches and stuff, I would sneak in when he wasn't at home and start messing with him. And that's how I started getting into like wanting to DJ. It was by messing his records up on his turntable. I didn't have no slip pads or nothing. I would scratch the bottom of them up because I would scratch on them, but there was no slip pad up under the bottom. So it would mess his records up. So yeah, that's how
That was the beginning.
Yeah, that was the beginning.
When you told your parents you were going to do this for a living, what was their reaction?
I actually left college. I was at Alabama A&M. Second semester junior year when I decided this ain't it. And I went and pulled my transcript last year because I couldn't remember what my GPA was. And I had like a 3.6 or something like that GPA when I left. Of course, I showed my kids. At the time, Shy D got the deal with Itchy Bun. And he was like, he said, yo, cuz, I got the deal. We about to do this album. So that's when I said, if I finish college, what am I gonna do with this? I need to go do what I want to do. So I asked my mom's blessing, and she said, I trust you. So I left college. That second semester, I didn't go back, and I came home, and I never looked back.
So if one of your 3 come to you...
One of them did, recently.
Uh-oh. Oh, isn't it funny how when the shoe was on the other foot?
And I thought I had to think about this because when he said it, it just hit me. I didn't see it coming. And that's what I told him. I know what it looks like. I know what passion for this looks like. You can't fool me.
So he's still in school?
Yeah, of course. I didn't tell him not to, but I told him when your passion catches, when your work ethic catches up, yeah.
Did you expect what you do to turn into a career of long standing?
You gotta understand, back then, the only label was Itchy Bun. Itchy Bun Records up in Kennesaw. There was no So Def, there was no LaFace. It was John and Nina Abbey up in Kennesaw. And so we didn't think that it was a reality for us to become lifetime musicians that could actually pay bills through music. So when I was doing it, I was just having fun for the love of music. Who knew what was coming?
So tell me about your friends, particularly Mr. Bone Crusher, who I interviewed. So how did you two meet?
We went to high school together. And Bone wanted to be a DJ at first. And so he would come over to my house to learn how to DJ, because I was like the neighborhood DJ. And I didn't even know Bone was rapping. I never knew he, back then, and he has a great story of how it all happened. I didn't remember none of this stuff because a lot of stuff has happened. But he would come over and try to learn how to DJ. Next thing I know, he's Bone Crusher with a hit record. So who knew? All of this is like right in the neighborhood. Yeah. And I went to school with Mr. DJ, with Outkast. He would come over my house to learn how to DJ.
And what about Luda?
Luda was younger than us. Luda was interning for Itchy Bun. That's how I met him first.
There's like this little germination in College Park.
Right. Let me just say this about Itchy Bun, because whenever the story of Atlanta gets told, nobody mentions Itchy Bun Records. They were here first. Everybody was signed to Itchy Bun. Kilo was signed to Itchy Bun. We were. MC Breed was on Itchy Bun when he did I Gotta Get Mine. When he was living here. Everybody was on Itchy Bun Records, but people seem to forget that time frame, because back then it was truly independent. There was no major budgets or money, nothing like that. So I just wanted to get that out.
What is it about your music you think makes people go, I want to hear more of that? Because I just saw what you did down in New Orleans for Mardi Gras.
Right.
And you even mentioned that you were surprised at how the crowd, which was a very mixed crowd, more white than black.
Right, it was
reacted
95%
to your music.
White. I think because where I come from with the music marching band, I went to a HBCU. It's so culturally driven. It's not radio driven. It's like for my people. Like even Yin Yang Twins, the strip club is a part of Atlanta culture. So when we did Whistle While You Twerk, that was for the culture inside of 285. We didn't know it was gonna blow up and go all over everywhere. When we did Halftime Stand Up and Get Crunk, which became the theme song for New Orleans Saints, that was a HBCU song. They just latched on to it.
Coming up, the birth of the Yin Yang Twins.
I was like, I ain't never heard nothing like this, but y'all need to do a group.
Mr. Collipark takes us back to the yin and yang moment that started it all. Plus how turning 50 has changed his tune when it comes to producing new music.
The Yin Yang Twins are Kane, born Eric Jackson, and D-Rock, born D'Angelo Holmes.
Hands all on her knees and then her bows on her thigh. She like to twerk and that's for certain, cause I can tell she got me hype, I wanna bite it right now, yeah. Say,
how did you and the Yin Yang Twins get together?
That goes into D-Rock was signed to Itchy Bun. After he did the Bankhead Bounce, he got an album deal over at Itchy Bun Records, and I was over there doing DJ Smurf Records. And so we did a swap out. And at the time, D-Rock was a solo artist, and Kane would help him write. And on the swap out, D-Rock put Kane on the record with him. And when I heard them together, they weren't even the Yin Yang Twins yet. When I heard them on that record together, I said, I don't know what y'all doing. But I literally had chill bumps get on my arm when I heard them going back and forth with the wordplay. I was like, I ain't never heard nothing like this, but y'all need to do a group. And so on that album, it was an album called Dead Crunk that I did. And the poster says, introducing the Yin Yang Twins. This is before I signed them or anything. Yeah.
So how did you give them the name, the Yin Yang Twins?
I can't take credit. They did that.
Because they're not twins.
They're not twins by far. But they are yin and the yang though. They are up and down and up. When one's up, the other one's down, like literally.
The twins are known for sometimes suggestive and explicit lyrics in their songs. There's the radio version and the club version of their raps.
How about Get Low?
Get Low was just ratchet. Get Low was just ratchet. But even Wobble, with the horns, listen to it. It's all cultural. It's horns, it's percussion, it's all of that. So I think that's what connects. And that's why these records still get played to this day. you know, because it's made for the actual culture. And people, they ask me now when I go in the studio, well, how we gonna clean this up? How we gonna make we never thought about that, because we never thought that these records were gonna make it to the radio. So when they did, then we had to go like, okay, how do we clean this up? We were about that at that time. So that's the connection, I think, with my music versus anybody's catalog. People's like, why won't you do a versus? I don't know. My records don't sit like that. The number's not gonna tell you what the influence on the culture. Even Soulja Boy, he's still here. Everything is culture. So that's the connection.
I find it interesting what you just said. You just made it, then you clean it up for radio later.
Yeah, because when you make records for that, you taking what makes them special away. Just think of the Whisper song. Where do you see mine? Yeah. We wouldn't have never made that lyric.
No.
If we were thinking, okay, at some point we're gonna have to play this on the radio. We would have took that out. We never thought it was gonna make it to the radio. So we just say what's on your mind. And when it got to the radio, we just put a little noise in there.
Mr. Collipark is a producer and a parent with 2 sons in college and a daughter.
How do they feel about their dad producing the kind of music he produces?
Well, you know, they know their dad like that, but I didn't put that in the house like that. It's like you said, I couldn't find this, I couldn't find that. I grew up in music for the love of it, not for the flash of it. And so that doesn't define who I am to my kids. So I didn't raise them on that. They know dad. And so, I mean, you know, you grow up. I was in college and like some of those DJ Smurf albums, I played one for my son now. My son couldn't take it. My first album on Ichiban is DJ Smurf. Clearly, I was still in college in my mind. And even when I was listening to it while it was playing for him, I'm like, oh my God. I was off the chain. I was off the chain. And my mom pulled me to the side back in the day and said, are you okay? Do you really feel this way towards women? And because it was driven, it was that kind of music. I listened to a lot of Poison Clan, a lot of NWA back then. And so my music reflected that. And I was like, nah, this just songs I'm making. Yeah, but you grow up and you grow out of it. Yeah. Now is the time for me to find a young me and let them do that. Well, I can still sit back and be like, that's not me, that's them. But as long as it's true to who they are, art, whatever, I can't, let's just say, quote unquote, street rap, right? That's not me. You'll never hear me, not at this point, you'll never hear me affiliate, because I don't even want to be in the studio while they're doing it. So why even, to me, that's faking it. And so, but yeah, who knows where my maturity will take me, you know, from here.
Passing the torch. How Mr. Collipark is making his mark on the next generation of music producers. Plus, his first song became Usher's biggest hit. I'll introduce you to a songwriter and producer, Sean Garrett, when One-on-One continues.
Michael Crooms, better known as Mr. Collipark, turned 50 last year.
So, did you have an issue when you turned 50?
The first time it came out my mouth, yeah. I'm 50. How old are you? 50. Whew. I almost cussed just then. Because we used to, when you said 50 back when I was 20, that was an old granddaddy. Like literally the way 50 is younger now. But back then, 50 was my grandmama. And so when it came out my mouth, I said, yo, even if I was in denial about my age, I can't be anymore. I'm 50. So then you embrace it. And you know, it's time for something else, and let everybody else come in and have their time. And you embrace and you teach. That's what you do.
And that's why you are now looking for new talent.
Let me dumb it down. Listen to me, bust the funky sound. Way to go with an attitude.
Because you want to produce new talent.
Yeah, I was telling somebody this the other day. When you look at all of us people who are from here, Rico, myself, Jermaine, all of those guys, when we walk into these offices, and they gave us these little budgets. They signed us. They didn't give us no money. They did no work. They were sitting up in their offices in New York, LA, wherever they were. They said, here, you know what you're doing. Here, take this little money and make it go do what it do. And that's what we did. We don't really do that now. Not the way they're looking at it. So when we sign, we done turn getting signed into something else. It's a whole other thing now. No, empower somebody. You know, go take this money and go make it do what it do. And then when you make it do what it do, then we'll put some more with it. And that's what I think it's time to do.
You don't take advantage of artists the way you were taken advantage of.
No. No, I don't. The way you put that makes me pause a little bit, but you're right. And it's a bad thing. Shame on me.
How would you know? You were a kid.
Well, I'm not now.
Michael is dabbling in a new genre of music, country rap.
Well, that's why I started messing with the country rap. It gave me that feeling of it's a whole scene that nobody's looking at. That's how I move. I'm motivated by what nobody's doing.
The Yin Yang Twins recorded Twerking at the Hoedown. It's become a dance favorite on social media. It all started with a suggestion from his friend Vic, who is a country rap podcaster in Griffin, Georgia.
We went in the studio and just started vibing, and we did a little track, and it had a little country vibe to me. So I sent it to him. I said, is this what you're talking about? He's like, yeah. So I said, I got a little song I started with Yin Yang. Let me send this to you. And that was the Twerking at the Hoedown. It was incomplete, just a verse or whatever. He said, man, this is perfect. You got to do this. And so we finished the record and just threw it out. And then just like my favorite, I like the country rap because it's like an underground scene. Like none of the artists are mainstream. And so it reminds me of Crunk before it went mainstream. The artists still like really take songwriting serious, the art form serious. So I said, I'll mess around with it a little bit.
Well, when I was looking on TikTok, some of the people,
yeah,
that is just a whole other thing.
Yeah.
Have you seen those videos?
Some of them, yeah. I mean, that's the beauty. You never know how your music is gonna affect people. You might see a senior citizen doing a Twerking at the Hoedown video, and you might see a 8-year-old doing the Twerking at the Hoedown.
And I did.
So that's what I'm saying. Their take on it not gonna be the same unless it's a challenge. Now that's when everybody try to do the same thing. But that's the beauty of music. It's art, and your perception of it is yours.
My next guest is a hit-making machine. He's written and produced songs for Mary J. Blige, the Pussycat Dolls, Chris Brown, Britney Spears, Beyonce, and Usher, and that's just to name a few. He is well known in the music industry, but he isn't outside of the music industry. It's time to go one-on-one with Sean Garrett, who calls Atlanta home.
Because the Holy Spirit ain't nothing to play with.
The song, Yeah, was only the second song Sean Garrett had written, and it became a smash hit. But it almost didn't make it because Usher almost said no to Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, because, I mean, you know, a lot of times artists or people, you know, like I said, it really is a gift. And understanding something is not always understood all at the same time, right? And it's like, sometimes, you know, creatives are definitely misunderstood, right? It's like to come up with an idea or to come up with an invention, sometimes it takes people a little time to really digest it, especially if it's new, especially if it's a new invention, right? And so I always look at creating songs as a creation, right? And sometimes it's not just the wording, it's the feeling of it. It's the way it makes you feel. You know, sometimes less is more, or the uniqueness of the styling, right? It's just, sometimes it's just styling, sometimes it's wordplay, sometimes it's heavy intensity, and sometimes it's a mild caress.
So how did you talk him into doing Yeah the way you wanted it done?
The way that wow, that was really a voyage. Cause I remember, you know, his mom, like I really took to his mom.
Janetta.
Yeah, Janetta, because, you know, I always look at moms like my mom, you know what I'm saying? But his mom wasn't really having, she wasn't really having it. I remember twice I had to go out to Usher's house a couple times, and you know, Miss Janetta just was not with it. So she was like, I remember one time she was like, we don't really like that song, so I think you need to stop trying to push that song on Usher. And I was like, at that time, I was young and wild. I was just like, I hear you, but I'm about to change his life. And she looked at me like, boy. But you know what, it ended up, I ended up going to L.A. Reid and playing the record with my man Shakir Stewart, God rest his soul. Shakir was actually the president of Hitco, which was L.A. Reid's publishing company at the time. And L.A. said, I don't know, kid. I like this, but I don't know about it. Because it was a really, like, you know, it was actually something that was very different, very new, very, I said to myself, I was like, man, either they're gonna hate this or they're gonna love it. But I feel like that's the way, you know, that's the way you end up changing the world, right? By taking a chance with what you feel in your heart and being daring, right? Because that's really what people want. Like, they want excitement. I feel like, you know, that song was something that I was trying to create an excitement for Usher. To me, he's like today's Michael. And Michael had this ability to electrify. You know, Usher has that ability to electrify on stage. And he also has an amazing voice. So I felt like, you know, that song was perfect for him. In my mind, I was like, this will be perfect for you. And it was sort of like a double hook in it. So I was like, there's no way that if the consumer hears this record with Usher's voice on this, is gonna be amazing. And the one thing about it, even though he didn't really like it, he gave 150%.
And it became a #1 hit.
Yeah, it was #1 for like 12 weeks on the Hot 100s. That's like 3 months. That was pretty good. It's #2 song of the 2000s. And yeah, that was the beginning of my career.
He's worked with 2 of his idols. The first, Sean Love Combs, known as P. Diddy, Puffy, and Diddy.
The first time I got a chance to work with him, it was completely like breathtaking. Diddy was like, he has an energy that's really contagious. And you learn a lot from Diddy, you know, if you're one of those type of people that can, as a producer, if you're one of those type of people that can really take energy, you know, Diddy is really great for you, right? He's someone that will energize you and actually help take you to another place of being creative, right? Because he's really good at sort of pushing the envelope. Because I remember one time I did this other song on Last Train to Paris. And Diddy was like, hey, Playboy, I want you to write the song again. I'm like, Diddy, I don't write songs again. And so, you know, I learned then that like he definitely doesn't take shorts. He really takes his craft very, very seriously. And like, if you're one of those people that can take it, it's like he'll make you better. He'll definitely make you better.
He has produced hits for the biggest female stars in the music industry. Sean tells me how being a mama's boy helped prepare him.
And my mom was very responsible for making me a man. And she just, you know, I feel like she taught me a lot about life.
I saw you and I knew you were mine. Ain't trying to spend the night and spend my life. I ain't even on that type of time.
Sean Garrett's other musical idol gave him his nickname, The Pen.
Yeah, like Jay-Z's always been an idol of mine. I've always just like really respected his ability to Man, do so many different things, right? I've always liked I've always loved his music for sure. But I like the way that he handles business. I've always admired the way he has always been able to like sort of travel in two different lanes, right? I would say he's well respected in the streets, he's well respected in his craft, but he's also respected in the corporate world. And it's very admirable for someone like that we can look at and say, you know, Dad, one day I want to be like that. You know, one day I want to be able to become a billionaire.
How did he give you the name The Pen?
I think it was because, you know, I've written quite a few hits for his wife. I got a great opportunity to work with Beyonce, actually with Destiny's Child first, on the Destiny's Fulfill album. That was just an amazing opportunity. I ended up doing probably, I don't know, like 10 records on that album. Like Soldier and Lose My Breath, T-Shirt, Girl. And she was like really gracious. You know, she gave me such an opportunity to work on that. And then I came back in, she gave me an opportunity to work on the Pink Panther soundtrack. Ended up doing, she and I did a Checkup on it, which ended up being another #1 record. And then I got a chance to work with her on B-Day, which was, in my opinion, the biggest album ever. Besides the first album, her first album was crazy too. But I got a great opportunity to work with her on B-Day, and we did records like Ring the Alarm and Get Me By and Upgrade You. Then I got a chance to work with her again on Sasha Fierce, records like Diva, and it was great. So I got a chance to meet Jay, and you know, I became like really fond of him as a person, and he took to me and, you know, gave me that name, and I really couldn't believe it. I called him one day and I was like, man, you know, how can I repay you? Of course, there's no way I can repay him for that, but I mean, how blessed can you be to have an opportunity to, you know, get a cosign by the dime, you know? But yeah.
You write unbelievable music for women. Yes, you write for men, but you seem to lean towards writing for women. Why?
It probably come from my mom. You know, I'm definitely a mama's boy. And my mom was very responsible for making me a man, for teaching me like the values of like respecting women, but also like being able to not be taken advantage of as well. You know, I feel like before my mom left this world, she sort of instilled in me a balance of, you know, confidence, integrity, you know, being able to stand on my own. And I think some people may say like I could be very strong in my stance, but you know, a lot of that comes from my mom. My dad was very my dad was always the biggest backer of my mom, you know. So, but I didn't really get chastised much from my dad. My dad was always, you know, very laid back and chill and cool. He's very supportive of my mom, but my mom was definitely the boss. And she just, you know, I feel like she taught me a lot about life. And she was always sort of like teaching me ahead. Like she was always telling me, you know, when I was 5 years old, she was kind of teaching me about, you know, money and about girls and about life and, you know, not making the mistake of allowing someone to sort of take advantage of you, or, you know, making sure that you learn everything there is to know about whatever craft that you decide that you want to be involved in, or whatever you want your craft to be. She used to also stress about not just knowing one thing, but trying to learn as much as you possibly can about life and everything that had anything to do with a business, right? So if it came down to, you know, knowing the craft of music, she wanted to, you know, she always would stress about knowing the business of music, knowing the business of money. Just, you know, she just always used to just say things that was, sometimes I felt like I was a little too young to understand, but as I grew older, it all started to make sense, make so much sense. And she used to always say, you know, you learn a lot, you live long enough.
When we return, Sean sings one of his original songs, For Me.
Dear, be you blow, just an even you blow.
When are you going to do an album of you singing versus giving it away to everybody else?
Sound like my mom.
I'm serious as life can be. I done been in love before. It was a tragedy. Wish you idea.
Sean has a studio in his home where he records his songs as demos for clients. He wants to raise the bar on R&B music.
It's not like, I'm definitely not saying I don't appreciate the music that's out. Like, I really appreciate, you know, the Drakes of the world, or there's so many amazing artists out that's doing amazing music. But as far as what R&B music represents, from all of the great R&B music that's been done over the years.
Like?
Man, Prince, Teddy Pendergrass, Guy, Michael Jackson, the Bee Gees, just music period. Like those songs were absolutely incredible, right? When you hear those records right now, it just gives you a feeling that you just can't deny. You know, it makes you feel love, it makes you feel excitement, it makes you emotional. And it's just a quality about music that, that's why we all love it, right? And it's just making sure that we continue to push the bar. That's what we're supposed to do, I feel. You know, when you get your opportunity to, you know, come after somebody like Lionel Richie, man. Like Lionel Richie was absolutely amazing. Smokey Robinson, Whitney Houston, just so many great people that did music. Like us as students, you know, we're supposed to do our job and keep pushing the bar.
When are you going to do an album of you singing versus giving it away to everybody else?
You know, I feel like I let God just guide me, because, you know, I feel so passionate about music that when I put together something and I want to package it and put it out, you want people to love it, but it's different when it's you, right? You want them to really appreciate you. And sometimes God has a way of just like, his timing is impeccable. And I just feel like, you know, I'm working on God's time. You know, I enjoy making music and I'm gonna enjoy that album. And I know the fans will too. I know that I get that a lot. But I appreciate the fans. I feel like, you know, giving music away, giving records away, it makes me better. It teaches me, I learn, you know.
Yeah, but we want to hear you, not through someone else. Why are you so afraid?
You know, it's a challenge sometimes to get over that hump of like, not being afraid, but just being ready and being ready to go and deal with all that comes with that too. You know what I mean? There's a lot that comes with that. It's a commitment. And, you know, and the other thing too is like my youngest son is now getting of age where I can like be out on the road and I can take him with me. And, you know, I have to consider all those things. You know what I'm saying? That's the part too that I have to, that's what I mean. Like I just don't belong to myself. I belong to my kids too. You know what I'm saying? So I have to kind of consider my decisions, because, you know, selfishly, I feel like my older son, I kind of feel like, you know, sometimes I owe him more of me. So you know, it's a challenge. It's a challenge, but God is definitely like making things more clear, and before you know it, I'm gonna be ready.
And I personally can't wait to hear his first single. By the way, Sean hopes his newest song for Usher, titled Glue, is as big a hit as Yeah. It debuted at #2 on the R&B Digital Song Sales Chart. Well, thank you for joining me, and I hope you'll join me for another episode of Monica Pearson One-on-One every Sunday at 8 p.m. right here on Peachtree TV. Good night.